What's going on, Dolphins? It's your boy Dillon. So I'm gonna try and keep this a relatively quick video, but I want to touch on this topic that obviously is being talked about by the other, YouTube podcasters, by the media, by, fans. Lots of people are talking about it, and that is whether or not the Dolphins are tanking, right? So there's a couple things. First and foremost, I would never, ever support such a thing, because it's just not how I am. It's just not how I'm wired. Like, I'm never, like, in the middle of a season, if the season's not going how, we expected, I will never be the guy to be like, all right, just lose your last few games so that way you can get a higher draft. I'll never be that, because in part, one, I want to win, and I don't give up. I'm not a quitter. And two, it's not where you draft but how you draft. I believe that firmly, right? Because look, Deion Jordan, we moved up to get him 3rd overall, and he was a complete bust for us, just as an example, right? So anyway, so there's that. So I would never ever support it. Now, having said that, obviously nobody in the organization is ever going to say that they're tanking, so on and so forth. But here's the element of this that I don't think people are really talking about. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what people want to do, right? So what I mean by that is okay, of course, and Stephen Ross even kind of, said it in one of his press conferences, after we, were no longer going to be in the playoffs. And I've mentioned it, here. He said that he hopes he doesn't have to go 3-13 next season or in the next couple years to get to where he wants. But it could be 1, 2, or 3 years before we're even really competitive. Right? So think about it. Sometimes you got to read between the lines with some of this stuff, right? And you got to see that the moves that they're making and so on and so forth. And so with something like that, because here's the thing, and I'll touch on this more later, but I've told you guys, I think that coaching staffs should, and front offices, the whole thing should be given 5 years. So I'm consistent with that. So I think that for the next 5 years, it should be Brian Flores and the way he wants to do things. We'll see if he makes it that far. Like I said, I have a feeling that if things don't go well over the next couple years, then he won't make it there. He got a 5-year fully guaranteed contract, but let's keep in mind, we're still paying Gase like $10 million, I believe it is, if I remember correctly, for this year. The Dolphins are paying Adam Gase like $10 million for this year because his contract was supposed to be long-term, at least 4 years, but that doesn't mean shit. Okay, so what that means is if everybody gets pissed off and they're unsatisfied with his results and then he gets fired in 3 years, then they still owe him money, even though we're then going to be moving on to another coach. Right? So just that's a reason why the financial aspect doesn't make sense. You hire a dude for 4 or 5 years and then you don't give him the time, you don't have the patience to even let the contract run out, and you just cut bait with him, and then, next thing you know, you're paying for 2 coaches. So that doesn't make sense. But anyway, so I'm a proponent for that. Right, so we'll see if he even has the time to do so. But again, you got to read between the lines a bit, and it's not necessarily, of course, Brian Flores. So, I watched Dudley Do-Wrong's shows sometimes. I watch TD Phins talk sometimes. Shout out to those guys. I disagree with them on a lot of things, but I'm going to disagree here a little bit today. But I like them. They're good guys, and they do good work, and, they do bring you the information and stuff. I think that their evaluations are not always accurate, but again, a lot of this stuff we do have to wait and see what happens, right? So, but they're talking about how, first of all, Dudley Do-Wrong was saying that Brian Flores said so much that really stuck out to him, but he didn't really say a whole lot. And realistically speaking, I said in my evaluation video of that press conference, he's not that articulate. He did seem like he was struggling a little bit to really get out what he was trying to say. And that's not really necessarily a knock on him. It's just who he is, right? And that's cool. But he didn't really say much. And for me, I preferred a guy like Gase because he was more fire. He got me pumped up. He got me excited. I'm not really getting that from Brian Flores, right? So getting to the stuff that you got to kind of read between the lines, right? Because again, it doesn't necessarily matter how much Stephen Ross or Chris Greer or Brian Flores or you or me or our brothers, mothers, sisters, aunts, and uncles want the Dolphins to do amazing next year, right? It doesn't really matter. And the past couple years with Adam Gase, and this was a big reason why I said he was fired prematurely, there's shit that happens that you have no control over. Absolutely no control over. That's why I say, for me, I can very easily see this going just only one of two ways. I don't see there being a middle ground because of the way that people are, right? So because I feel like at this point, Dolphins fans, the majority of us, and even Stephen Ross, because he's getting old, they want instant gratification. So if over the next 3 years, while because look, right now he's a first-year head coach. He was never even a coordinator. He was a linebackers coach with the Patriots last year, but called plays. So he was never actually a defensive coordinator. Sure, he's done a lot of things, right, which could help as a head coach, special teams, offense, defense, but also, I'd like to side note, people, are pointing that out like it's a good thing, and I think it is. Absolutely, I totally agree with that. But then with Ryan Tannehill, they'd be like, oh, well, he played receiver in college a bit because there was already an established veteran in front of him, and that's a knock on him. No, that actually gives him more knowledge from a different position and allows him to understand and have a better chemistry with his receivers. But people don't look at it like that. The Dolphins haven't won in so long that they just blame him for everything and they want to fire him, basically, right? So I feel like because of the way Dolphins fans are and so on and so forth, that right now it's either make it or break for them. Either he's going to do amazing over these next 3 years, right? And it blows my mind because let's say he even does do what Adam Gase did in his first season with the Dolphins and take us 10-6 or whatever, and we make it to the playoffs, right? Let's say that does happen. What happens in year 2 and 3 if we regress and we have shitty years again? Because he's a first-year head coach right now, right? He's implementing an entirely new staff for the most part. We lose Darren Rizzi, which is going to be huge. That's going to be something to pay attention to. Is our special teams going to suffer when that was the one area that we never had to worry about because of Darren Rizzi? Who knows? It's possible we could regress in that area, which could be even more problematic for the overall team, in this rebuilding process. Right? So whole new staff. Not only that, but he's got to set his culture, which I do think is very important. But of course, nobody wanted to, like Omar Kelly. I swear to God, if I see or hear anything from Omar Kelly about how Brian Flores is establishing the right kind of culture and blah, blah, blah. If I hear anything out of Omar Kelly other than culture doesn't fucking matter, I'm absolutely done with him because that's absolutely fucking hypocritical and what have you. Now I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen any comments of his in regard to that. But I swear, if I ever do, then he loses all legitimacy because that's totally hypocritical. It does make sense to set a culture, and it is super important. And I think potentially he could. We'll have to wait and see again. But it takes time to develop. You don't do it overnight. You're not going to do it first year, right? He's got to build that chemistry with his coaching staff, with the players. Not only that, but now, so the past 3 years, it was Tannenbaum, Greer, and Gase. And then, of course, with some Stephen Ross in there for the draft. Now it's a completely different power structure with different mentalities. Stephen Ross even said it. We're going in a completely different direction, supposedly. So that means you are starting over from scratch. Day one, right now with Brian Flores, we are starting over from scratch. So he's got to implement all these things. Now they got to get the guys that they want. So, and from reports, from what I've seen, Brian Flores runs more of a hybrid 3-4 defensive scheme, which means that we're going to go from a 4-3 to, theoretically, we would go from a 4-3 to a 3-4. That means you got to change schemes. That means the personnel that we have may or may not fit or be adequate with the new scheme. That means you're going to have to take time. It's going to take a few years to get drafts in, right, to pick the right guys. And who knows? Who knows if we're going to pick the right guys? Because there's no way to tell. There's no way to tell until you've had the player for a few years, and then you can evaluate it, right? We go into, see, look, this is part of the reason why, I mean, making predictions and so on and so forth is fun, but it's useless, really, because it doesn't actually do anything for us. Because the future has far too many variables and unknown things that we can't account for, that it's like almost impossible to make accurate predictions, right? So again, you know, there's all this talk about us getting a quarterback. If we moved up in the draft and get a quarterback, but we ignore the, like I saw, there was a 7-round mock draft done on Bleacher Report. We took a quarterback in round 2 in that draft, but we didn't take an offensive lineman at all until like round 7, the very last pick, round 7, the throwaway guy, right? But we take a running back and a wide receiver in the earlier rounds, in the earlier late rounds, so like round like 5 and 6, I think it was, if I remember correctly. And those are positions we don't really need. We don't. We've got Kenyon Drake, we've got Frank Gore, we've got Kalen Ballage, Sonoris Perry, Brandon Bolden. We're good at running back. We don't need another guy. Not even just to throw in the mix. Wide receiver, we got Kenny Stills. Devontae Parker may not be here, but even without him, we have Kenny Stills, Albert Wilson, Jakeem Grant, Isaiah Ford, Bryce Butler. Who am I missing? Francis Owusu, I think, is around. We've got guys, but we don't need them. So if you ignore your offensive line and you take a quarterback, especially if we end up getting rid of Tannehill, so let's say we take that 2nd-round quarterback, or let's say we move up, we get rid of a bunch of our draft capital, and we move up to go get a guy that we like. We don't really know how well he's going to perform because he's never been in the NFL. He's got to have transition time. He's got to learn how to be a professional, all these other things, right? All these unknown variables. You throw him in there without an offensive line, and he gets fucking demolished from jump. Because he can't fucking do anything. He's young, he's flustered, you know, all this stuff. And then look, what do you think is gonna happen, right? So again, I think that Gase was fired prematurely. I think he should have been given 2 years. I think they should have given it a chance to see if his culture and the way he wanted to do things would work, right? But now that it is the, you know, the situation is what it is, Brian Flores needs to be given that time. But again, will Dolphins fans give him that time? Or in 2 years from now, when things haven't gone, you know, as instantly superb as everybody wants it to be, are they going to flip and be like, oh, Brian Flores sucks. He's terrible at this. He's terrible at that. They're just going to shit on him all day and then be like, oh, he needs to be fired. That is crazy, it's chaotic, and you will never, you're not going to get instant success, and you're not going to get, or if you do, it certainly won't last, and you won't get sustained success. And that's why, like, all of this stuff, it drives me crazy with the way people handle it, man. It's just, look, he may not have the attitude of a tanker, you know, or somebody who would tank, but it may not be in his control. We could have and frankly, if you're just being honest and realistic with yourself, it is far more likely that we have a shitty season next year and the year after than it is that we make it to the playoffs or go to the Super Bowl. I mean, come on. Let's just be realistic about this, right? So, anyway, that's really all I got to say about it. You know, well, actually, real quick, you know, because there's talk about, in the national media, people were talking, oh, you know, tank for 2020 to get, you know, a quarterback. You're like, no. And don't move up. Again, don't move up. Just take a quarterback. For me, again, priority would be, and we'll get into this more later, but priority would be an interior offensive lineman, preferably a left guard or a center, right? And then, but you also need to make sure that you keep Juwan James. That's going to be huge. And And then you need to get an interior defensive lineman, although things may change up on the defense if we do change up our defensive scheme. So that throws, again, another, like I said, I mean, that throws a cog or a wrench into the cogs, because you might have to totally revamp your personnel on that side of the ball to do an entirely different scheme than what we've been doing for the past however many years, right? So, but we need defensive linemen. Those are my top two priorities. Right, edge rusher and interior defensive lineman. And again, that I can't be more specific because our scheme may be changing. But then after that, third or fourth round, take a quarterback for sure. Absolutely, without doubt. Right, and then I would say we also want to get another corner. We want to get probably 2 offensive linemen at some point in this draft. So one early on, either in the first or second round, and then one in like the 5th round, the 4th or 5th round, or maybe the 6th, right? If I was gonna trade, I would trade down and gather more picks, right? Yeah, so I mean, look, it just, I don't know. Like I said, I know that I tend to have a very different approach than most people, but I hope you guys like that. I hope you like a different perspective. For me, I hate hearing, just the same thing over and over again, especially when oftentimes the things that people are saying, like, have proven not to work in the past. So why do you want to... Anyway. So that's all I really got for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and end it here because I don't want to make this video any longer than it already is. So if you guys like my videos and what I do for you, if you guys like my perspective, we're getting really close to 100. I really appreciate it. I've actually been having some minor technical issues with my camera. So if for some reason there goes a few days without me making a video, it's because my shit the bed. And as I've told you, I just started working again, but hopefully I'm working some things around, and hopefully soon I will. It may be out of necessity if my camera does shit on me, but regardless, I'm gonna try and be, I'm gonna try and preempt that by getting one soon. So I'm, shuffling things around. Anyway, so where was I going with that? Well, anyway, I mean, I will be doing things. Hopefully I will have that, so that way I can, do live things with you guys more often, and whatnot. And I was saying that, geez, I was saying that because I was, talking about how we're almost at 100. I'm doing this for you guys, and I'm trying to improve it. I wanted to get a camera anyway. But I might be forced to speed that up a little bit, I guess, was kind of my point, which would be good, because then I will be able to do live things. Hopefully, I'll have it before the draft. I mean, that's not till the end of April, and I would actually think I will have a new camera by then. So hopefully I'll be able to do, a live stream of, me watching the draft. I don't think I can. I think that's just like the games, and I can't actually show you it, but we can watch it together, and I'll do a live thing. So hopefully that's coming in the near future as well. So, to my end spiel, if you guys like what I do, and I hope you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. As of right now, I got 94. We're almost to 100. And the more we build and the more we grow, the more I'll be able to do for you guys. So, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts for my videos. Make sure you leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. I love interacting with you guys. Just real quick on that, obviously, be respectful. If you cross it, if anybody, leaves comments that cross certain boundaries, I will get rid of them. But that's pretty extreme. Like, you got to be like saying some really racist, like bigoted shit or whatever, like that kind of stuff. If you call me an idiot, fine. I call people stupid all the time because they are stupid, whatever. I don't have a problem with that. You can leave your comments. If you come at me like that, then I'll come at you aggressive as well, and I'll shut you down with the facts. And then if you get really stupid, then I'll just ignore you after that, and you can leave your comments. Otherwise, if you got respectful things to say, if you want to have good debates and stuff like that, or tell me what you think about it, but in a respectful way, let's have the conversations. I love that, so on and so forth. It's a lot of fun. I really do enjoy interacting with you guys. And of course, leave me recommendations of things you'd like to see or what have you. And I will take those into consideration. If I can do them, I will. I've done that a little bit already with some of the viewers. So definitely get in the comment section and let me know and talk with me, chop it up, whatever. And then, of course, as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, guys, I am out. I will see y'all very soon. Fins up.